Daveeezy, we back with another video. Y'all see the thumbnail, y'all see the title. We back with Miss Jasmine. As always, I'm trying not to miss no takes by her. I think this came out 5 days ago, so we're not trying to miss no takes. I'm doing old takes by her. I'm doing the new takes by her. So let's go and waste some time. Let's get right into it, Miss Jasmine Crockett.
Joining me now to discuss all of this is the Democratic Congresswoman from Texas, Jasmine Crockett. She's a member of the Oversight and Accountability Committee. And also with us is Michael Waldman, the president and CEO of the Brennan Center for Justice. Welcome to both of you. Michael is also the author of the book Supermajority, The Year the Supreme Court Divided America, which is out in paperback just this week. But Congresswoman, first question to you. Any effort to fix the ethical mess on the court is very likely to be met with opposition from your Republican colleagues. We already saw that happen in the Senate this week. How do you convince your colleagues across the aisle that the Supreme Court needs fixing when this is the court that has given Republicans so much of what they want?
I don't think it's my voice that they actually will pay any attention to. I think it's going to be up to the voters. I think for the first time, voters are talking about the Supreme Court as they're considering who it is that they are going to vote for president, as well as during some of those down ballot elections. And so one reason that Democrats may actually hold on to the Senate is because of the Supreme Court and the fear that if for some reason Republicans are given control of the Senate, that they will actually make the Supreme Court even worse than it is. And God knows how bad that could be for us as a country if this court gets any worse. So I don't think that they're really willing to listen to me, but I absolutely believe that the people are the only ones that are going to be able to rectify this issue.
So, Michael, the Congresswoman raises a really interesting point. Most people are used to thinking about the Supreme Court as the impartial branch of government. How do you think the public is going to respond with the court being at the center of politics, and that politics may actually be the best source of solutions for everything that ails the court right now?
Melissa, many other times in our history, the Supreme Court and its role and whether it's gone too far has been a big electoral issue, a big political issue. Right now, all the polls show that public trust in the court has collapsed to the lowest level ever recorded. More and more people are seeing that it's a governmental agency. These are 9 government officials. They wear robes, but they're not wizards or religious figures. They're just government officials with lifetime appointments and huge power over the rest of our lives. So I think it's entirely appropriate to have it be a big issue. The Democrats have made reproductive freedom an issue, but they have not yet really made the Supreme Court itself an issue, and I hope that's the next step.
Well, a big part of making the court a big issue is to focus on the court's relationship to some of these other electoral issues. So, Congresswoman, one big issue for many voters is the question of gun violence. And I'd like to read you a quote from Justice Alito's concurring opinion in the bump stock case that was decided yesterday. Justice Alito wrote, quote, "There is a simple remedy for the disparate treatment of bump stocks and machine guns. Congress can amend the law, and perhaps would have done so already if ATF had stuck with its earlier interpretation. Now that the situation is clear, Congress can act." Congresswoman, is this gaslighting? Justice Alito, as well as anyone, knows how difficult it is going to be to pass gun reform legislation. Do you foresee Congress acting on this ahead of the election? And if it does, are you worried that any action would simply be invalidated by this court on the ground that those reform measures violate the Second Amendment?
Spam and eggs. And
We love commercials.
that's one steamy love triangle. Sizzle, pork, and
Yeah, I'm sure Justice Alito will come up with some other explanation as to why, even if Congress did act, why that law is unconstitutional in some way. I'm sure the Second Amendment and all of those gun manufacturers will win again. Listen, we know that this is the most ineffective and unproductive Congress in the history of Congresses. We know that nothing is getting through, and we absolutely know that when it comes down to anything that has to do with guns, they are beholden to those corporations instead of being beholden to the people that actually put them into power. And so if we don't make this a big issue, and I think that you're absolutely right, what Democrats right now are doing is we're trying to tie together all these issues. And at the center and core of these problems is the Supreme Court. So I think that it's not a matter of talking about them separately, but it's about tying in repro to the Supreme Court, tying in guns to the Supreme Court, tying in diversity, equity, and inclusion to the Supreme Court, LGBTQIA, as well as climate change. All of these issues, when we see the decimation of them, they're at the hands of this rogue court.
Right, Michael, you note in your book, Supermajority, which is out in paperback this week, and it's a terrific book, highly recommended. You note that there's an interesting dynamic going on between Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Thomas. You say that, quote, Roberts holds the gavel, but Thomas holds the power. Can you say more about that dynamic between these two lions of the right?
Well, we give these courts the name of the Chief Justice, but right now, Clarence Thomas and his ideas, the idea of the way he puts it as originalism, that only laws that are rooted in, quote, history and tradition, meaning the social views of property-owning white men from the 1700s, can govern our country today, that has become dominant. And sometimes Roberts can muster a majority to slow down the direction of the court. But Thomas's energy to push it and push the country in unrecognizable directions is really much more significant in the long run, I think, for this court.
So Roberts is really just a traffic cop, but Justice Thomas is sort of the intellectual heft of the conservative movement on the court?
And I think he was considered to be way at the fringe for many years, but now the fringe has become the mainstream on this court. And it's not just bad ideas, but he's entangled in this right-wing political and financial machine in ways that are also highly unusual.
Right, so that's a really good intervention to think about what has recently happened on the court. So, Congresswoman, just this week, the court ruled that mifepristone can remain on the market for now. But we know that this is just a way station. Anti-abortion folks are not going to stop with wide access to medication abortion being available. What are your thoughts on the court's decision in this case, and what do you think the next steps are going to be as this issue goes back to the states and the public?
Yeah, so basically what those anti-abortion groups were looking for was a roadmap. Everyone who had ever gained a law license knew that this was a nothing burger case simply because they literally didn't have standing. The fact that a case that lacked standing made it all the way to the Supreme Court. And for those that aren't lawyers, essentially you can't sue if you haven't been harmed in some way. And that's essentially what we had, was a case that literally had people that had not been harmed. And the fact that it made it past the trial level and the appellate level and made it all the way to the Supreme Court is absolutely insane. But that's because we have these right wingers on every single level of the courts that are absolutely committed to doing their random Christian, and it's not Christian, it's Christo-fascism movement that they're all standing in the gap for. And then they basically signal to the court, tell us how we can get a case to you and how you will rule on the merits. And so basically the court decided, listen, we're not going to rule on the merits. This never had standing, and so we'll just leave it there. But it's important for us to really focus in on the fact that y'all were real nice a second ago. Listen, Clarence Thomas is corrupt. End of story. I mean, nobody gets this kind of money and isn't influenced in any way. That is where we stand, and that is why the American public is outraged at this court right now because of the likes of Clarence Thomas. And I absolutely believe that there is going to be a reckoning on November 5th.
Okay, so the e-commerce big guys offer 2-day shipping, and maybe you're a not so big guy. All
right, so Michael, everything the Congresswoman says is spot on. Litigants are really wary of the federal courts right now, and that means they're looking for other venues to bring their cases. And one of those venues that we've seen a lot of movement toward are state Supreme Courts. So there's been a renewed focus on state Supreme Courts in the election in the post-Dobbs era. And this year, a total of 82 state Supreme Court seats are up for grabs in 33 states. What is at stake in these judicial elections, and how do we get people to pay attention to these very much down ballot races?
Well, so much is at stake. So much money is now pouring in to these races, a lot of it dark money, undisclosed money. But I think it's also part of a very positive development. As the Supreme Court has been captured by a faction of a faction, people are seeing that state courts and state constitutions are an independent bulwark to protect rights and freedom and equality. Just to give one example, every state but one in their state constitution has a stronger protection for voting rights than the U.S. Constitution does. So we want these state courts to protect reproductive rights, to deal with gerrymandering and all these other things. Many of them are stepping up, but that means a lot of money and a lot of political energy is going into these races. It's going to be part of our politics going forward.
Well, and you make a good point about state constitutions. Like, many state constitutions are more generative of individual rights than the federal constitution. Like, for example, many state constitutions have equal rights amendments, which we don't have on the federal level. So this is a really fruitful place to bring cases, but people really have to pay attention.
People have to pay attention, and increasingly they are. Think about the Wisconsin Supreme Court race after the Dobbs case. That's a state that's very evenly divided, but the more liberal justice candidate there won by 11 points. It was a referendum on reproductive rights. It was a referendum on gerrymandering, and the people spoke, and the court has changed its actions as a result.
And that's where we are. We're moving to other venues. Lots going on with the courts, both state and federal. Representative Jasmine Crockett and Michael Waldman, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
And there y'all had Ms. Jacket. I said Jacker. What the heck? Ms. Jasmine Crockett, just amazing as always. Always speaking her truth. Don't care what other people say. Love her to death, man. Dear Ms. Rep Crockett, you give me hope for the future. Thank you, bless you. Facts, bro. Clarence Thomas must be kicked out. I did do a little video. They do not deserve to be around anymore. I feel like everybody in Congress and shit, Supreme Court, everybody's just old. Everybody's older. Shit is crazy to me, man. But I ain't gonna waste no time. Ms. Crockett is unbelievable as always. It's a lot of corrupt stuff going on apparently, and like money shit going on. I need to learn about it. I'm trying to learn about it, but yeah, she's trying to crack the code. It's also a dangerous job. I feel like she has, but hey, who else is gonna lead us to a better country? You know what I'm saying? We need more people like her, for sure. If there's any more people like her in Congress, please let me know. Put it down in the comment section. I will react to it, y'all. I love y'all. Got way more videos to do. Make sure y'all like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified when I upload. Love y'all. Peace and love, baby. We out.